Hi everyone, welcome to my talk, How Minimalism Helps Build High Quality Products. My name is Lina Zubyte. I like to call myself Quality Aficionado, even though my current title is Head of Quality at Doodle. You can find me on Twitter as Bagilina. I do like to write on quality topics a lot, and my writings are on qualitybits.tech. And I do have a podcast too with the same name, Quality Bits. So check it out and feel free to reach out to me with any questions, comments, discussions. So let's get back to this topic. Minimalism and high quality products. Why would I even link those? Well, I was reading a lot about minimalism, and it's funny, but I saw so many parallels when it comes to high quality products based on all the experience I've had working with software engineering. So I thought I will add all those parallels in this talk and tell you more about what I've observed and what I find really useful concepts for building high quality products. And they do relate with minimalism quite a bit. So let's set the stage first. Where did I get this idea? I was at a conference, a testing conference. And if you've been at a testing conference, you know that there are talks about tools. I know that as well, right? And I go on a talk, and don't get me wrong, some talks about tools are wonderful. They're very interesting, lots of great tips and tricks. But the talk I was in, it was just saying, this tool, that tool, these tools, this framework, that framework. Oh, as if it's going to solve everything in your world. It was preaching all kinds of tools, and I was sitting there and cringing. I was like, I don't think that, this will actually solve all the problems. And I almost fell asleep in that talk. It was so boring. Tools are great, but like, what are we even trying to solve there? Tools are not going to magically solve all your problems. It's just tools, right? In the end, it is people who solve the problems, not the tools. So we use tools to solve the problems. And here there's a funny quote as well in minimalism, which says, love people, use things, the opposite never works. And I feel like here we could also say, love people, use tools. And the opposite also never works. So you may enjoy some tools, but in the end, it's people who solve the problems. There was also the case that I saw a company where there were 100 employees and there were 120 tools. That means that actually, even if they had some common goals in the company when it comes to employees, you could say that every employee introduced a new tool. And you may ask me here, so there's so many tools. Everything must be sorted out and in order with no problems. Maybe everything is automated and there's like a very smooth process, whatever you do, and you can get answers very easily because you're paying for so many tools. The answer is nope. There were plenty of problems. Those tools, well, they not only did not like solve the problems, but they also created multiple problems, because sometimes you would try to find an answer in a tool and then you realize that it just partially answers. It does not give the full answer to whatever you were looking for. Then you have to use 3 other tools to combine the full answer, and you are lost in noise and you have no clue which one to use because there's so many options. So this is actually overwhelming. It's not really helpful. And I keep on thinking in situations like this of Agile Manifesto. And you may say, Lina, really? This woo-woo thing, this Agile thing? I know. Agile has become a little bit abused, let's say so, because many companies do it wrong and they forget that there was just this mindset behind it. So this Agile Manifesto was created like a reminder for us how we should work. And it says that we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. This means that even though tools are great, right? But maybe we value other things more. And even though we do enjoy documentation, but we do want that our software would work. I come back to this manifesto time and time again, because I feel that this is the crucial core idea of Agile. And whatever process you end up using or tool, that's not what Agile may be. It's just a way to use something or do something, but it's not changing the interactions or customer collaboration and responding to change. It's not doing it for you. You're still doing it yourself. And one particular point here is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. That's how I started the talk, right? The tools, the processes. What if we actually concentrate on the individuals and interactions first before we go to use tools? Digging deeper into Agile Manifesto, I also found Agile principles behind the manifesto, and there was one that also stuck with me. Simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. As someone who has read about minimalism, simplicity, essential. The words started getting to me. And this principle is basically meaning that we would eliminate waste, that we would do less. Actually, we would not do crazy amounts of work at the same time. And then in the end, we will do more. So less is more. Funny, right? This adds up to the concept of minimalism. So you may also say, okay, Lina, this all sounds great, but how do we do it? And we have certain teams and companies and contexts. And yeah, this is a great woo-woo thing. Well, let's take a look at it. So first of all, let's start with the idea of minimalism, right? So we still need to get through the definition. Minimalism is intentionally promoting the things we most value and removing everything that distracts us from it. It is marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality. I really like clarity, purpose, and intentionality. And we'll take a look how it could link with our work as well. There's one lady that gets very much associated with minimalism. That's Marie Kondo. Marie Kondo is known for decluttering ideas, and her work in also Netflix's show Tidying Up. And she released a book where she added all these ideas. She basically says, if you pick up a thing and that thing is not sparking you joy, you should let it go, right? You should actually not have it. So you should have things in your life only that are sparking you joy. You may say, come on, like there are still essential things. Yeah, there are still essential things. So those you will have and you will keep with them. So don't think that minimalism is about getting away from everything. No, it's okay. Like you can have your essentials. You don't have to have bare minimum. If it adds you some kind of comfort, even if it's not sparking joy, it's essential, right? So let's not mix it up. But Marie Kondo does have lots of great ideas. I saw this quote and I really liked it. So it says, when we really delve into the reasons for why we can't let something go, there are only two: an attachment to the past or a fear for the future. I really see the parallel here to software development. If you've heard of the concept sunk cost fallacy, it's basically our tendency to not let go of things where we invested a lot. So it's our attachment to the past. If we put so much work into something, we're less likely to let it go. And the fear for the future is also another thing that makes us delve into reasons why we can't let go. In software development too, we may say, actually, this may happen, and then that affects the way you feel about the product, and you may act accordingly. So these concepts sound like something we could use in software development, right? So minimalism, simplicity, intentional work, I believe they actually are the base of teams building high quality products. And why do I believe that? Because if you look at the definition, couldn't we just replace minimalism with high quality products? Because high quality products are actually something that are intentionally promoting the things we most value and removing everything that distracts us from it. It is marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality, right? So our products are marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality, but you could also say the ways of work, the way we are doing and creating those high quality products, they're also a lot of things that we could learn here. So we would want to have work that's efficient, and we remove the bottlenecks. So we remove everything that distracts us from it. This is a really nice analogy. So let's dig deeper. So how do we actually do this, and where could we find some lessons from minimalism that we could apply? So I'll share some stories from about these known topics for us close to engineering, as well as some tips on where I think some minimalism lessons come in and what we could do. So when we talk about ways of work, very often what we hear is Jira. Jira is how we work, right? So I do like Jira, don't get me wrong. But the way that some people think that way of work is Jira, it's not really, right? It's just a tool that helps you out. So when I Google Jira, I find these articles. So this is just one of the articles that I found. No credits given here, not to mock anyone, but this title makes me cringe so much. A guide to Jira workflow, best practices with examples. And there's this huge spaghetti kind of graph, which already gives me a headache. Oh, and best practices. In one of the Quality Bits episodes, I spoke to Steve Upton, and we were talking how best practice is actually a harmful phrase, because sure, there are good practices, but if it works in your context, that's up to you to decide, right? So there's no best practice, there's no silver bullet that works for everyone. And here it's also as if, it would help you work with each other. Nah. And come to think of it, I remember this funny example, how once there was an idea in the company I worked at to introduce flags in Jira. So when you are blocked on something, you would just flag something. That was such a solution, right? So people were saying, hey, we're getting blocked. And the person that was working a lot with these Jira workflows and who had lots of experience there was like, oh, no problem. So if you're blocked on something, let's just add a flag, and then it will raise awareness, and then everyone will know, and we will sort out the problem. And that's what we would do. So if I'm blocked on something, I would add, okay, I'm blocked here, and I'm blocked because this team needs to develop something before I do that. And after a little bit, we realized that, so what? We're marking things with flags and nothing's really changing. The same problems are still there. And one of my colleagues had a very funny quote. He said, well, you can tag it with every flag in the world and it still won't help. I laughed at it, but it was a little bit of a laugh with the tears in my eye, because it was so true. It wasn't the flag that was solving anything. It was actually the fact that we had to talk to each other that would have helped. So in these situations, let's ask ourselves, what is the purpose of whatever tool we have? And whatever we're deciding to do, are we actually intentional and clear with it? When it comes to tools and these ways of work, like if you look at the actual, just like the starts of collaboration, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So Jira is just a tool, right? But what is behind it is all this collaboration. It's individuals and interactions. And I recently saw this tweet. Wait, you all don't use user stories? No, what for? To have stories. How do you break stuff down? The team meets, talks about it, maybe sketches, and then we build it. Without stories? We might take notes or diagrams and make them stories? No stories. And this tweet is by someone pretty known in product field. And you may think, well, shouldn't they be promoting user stories? I do love user stories myself. And I feel like crisp, nice, short user stories are amazing. And then they can make us build really great products. However, if the team is fine to work without a user story, no problem. That works for them, right? This is their way of work. They talk about it, they sketch it out, and then they build it. Great. But we're sometimes so stuck with our status quo and whatever we have that we're not questioning things. And we even answer, to have stories. What for? To have stories. What kind of argument is that? And when I think, okay, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, it makes me remember the team I worked in. And this is an actual picture from that team. At the start, we didn't have Jira. We had no access to anything. We were just starting to build everything. And we just had a room. And we had lots of Post-its and we had lots of boards and we would brainstorm everything. And it was evolving. So we just started with a few columns, a few tasks, and then we just grew. In this picture, you can see the board behind. That was our actual development board, whatever was ready to pick up or it was in development. And you even could see avatars on some of the stories. So this was all a physical board. And the team had an actual stand-up. So every day, the team would meet up and they would go around the board and they would give their updates. And here you may say, yeah, this was before pandemic. Yeah, it was before pandemic, but I feel like there's a lot here to learn from this, because you don't really need a specific tool to do something. You still can do the work. It looks just different. And whatever works for this team. So here also you can see that there's a laptop open, and I as far as I remember, there was someone online. So we actually were doing a hybrid meeting. So they were being involved and we were sketching and using whiteboards to decide on a new solution. So you don't necessarily need a certain specific tool. What matters for ways of work are individuals and interaction. So instead of using lots of flags in Jira, maybe you could just go to that team and say, hey, what's up? Are you going to work on this? If you're not going to work on this, when are you planning to work on this? That's it. Talk to each other. Next step. Engineering simplicity. There was a simplicity principle, right? So let's dig in here. There's one thing that we often see, over engineering. And you may think, hey, you're head of quality. Don't you think that we should build amazing, perfect quality? I don't believe in perfect. I don't believe in best. I believe in good based on the context, and I believe in context. I would answer very often, it depends. It doesn't mean that you're doing something completely basic and without anything, and we'll get into this. But there are some concepts in engineering simplicity that can help us a lot. And there's this quote that I really like by Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, who said, if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have launched it too late. So we all may have seen big bang releases with lots of features and lots of things going on. Maybe that not necessarily was a great thing. Maybe we should just have given it to users and for them to give feedback to us. An example of this is a Microsoft brand. I don't know if you are aware of this product, but it was released in 2014. And it was a pretty fascinating and full of features Microsoft band. It was like a fitness watch as we have, right? So I have Apple Watch now. But this one, it not only had all the fitness tracking functions, not only you could access apps, you could even have a microphone there. It was so full of features. But in a sense, it had a bit too many features. And also the price of it was a lot for people who have never used it. And there were other competitors in the market that had better options. So this was discontinued and it flopped. Lots of engineering efforts. Maybe just hypothesis, but maybe if they released with less features, they could have gotten some feedback and realized what people need and improved on it instead of just building it and then flopping. Joshua Kerevsky is about to release a book, Joy of Agility, and there he states this mantra: start minimal and evolve. I really like this mantra because I feel like it touches on minimalism as well of how to build high quality products. And there's also one concept in evolutionary design. So evolutionary design states that it's the practice of growing a system in a natural way by adding the minimum amount of code to satisfy the business needs in an iterative and incremental approach. This is very similar to MVPs, right? To minimal viable product. And very often I see companies that they do not really know how to build MVPs. Very often MVPs are huge. They're I don't know, they're Microsoft bands. And here is a big challenge also, like how to have enough of trade-offs, right? How to balance out the quality and what we have and have certain needs there. And I'd like to introduce to you this concept of desire paths. I really like this example. So basically, in architecture, there was this case where they built a campus. This is not the exact campus. This is Brazil, by the way. But they built the campus for university, and the architect did not add the pathways in the campus. And some people were like, oh, why aren't you adding, you could just have a pavement like for pedestrians to walk, some paths. And the architect said, yeah, but I'm actually not adding it on purpose. I want my users to tell me where are they going to walk. And once they actually step into this grass and they make the pathways, this is where I'm going to lay down little pathways and make pavements. And I feel like that is a great concept, right? So they call this desire paths. And in tech, we also could learn from it. So we could first release the product, collect lots of data, understand what our users want, and see how they behave. Actually make some kind of decisions for our next steps when we actually release the first part of the thing, not only releasing the big bang product. A book that I really would like to recommend you is Building Evolutionary Architectures by Neil Ford, Rebecca Parsons, and Patrick Waugh. It's actually a fascinating concept. I didn't think that I would be so into architectures as a QA, but I am, because it's talking exactly about this, that we have to build architecture which evolves. And for this, we also have to have fitness functions or something that manually or automatically gives us some kind of feedback on how we're doing in our architecture. So it still doesn't mean that we're just blindly building something and a little thing, but we also have some quality checks, right? So it's about this trade-off and balance, right? That we are balancing this out and making sure that we can grow our product and have an evolution with it. Another concept I'd like to share with you is this German word that I'm going to butcher now, which is Datensparsamkeit. There's an article by Martin Fowler with the same name where he explains this concept in more detail. But it's about the fact that if you are building some system, it uses lots of data, don't use and take all the data you can get. There's this misconception that, we should take all the data we can get and store it because who knows, maybe you will need it. But with a lot of data comes lots of responsibility. So I'd say don't need it, don't store it. Because if there's a data breach or something, then you will be one more source that could be actually attacked, right? So you could be actually causing privacy problems and security problems. What's more, you're causing more problems for yourself because you're creating noise. So you're not having only essential data, you're having so much more. So it's hard for you to find whatever you need as well there. So if you don't need it, don't store it. An example here I would have is that once we worked in a team where we were just sending out an email about a confirmation of the purchase. In that email, we had to add the 4 last digits of IBAN, so we'll have a payment account. So if a customer made a purchase, we would say, okay, we charge your account, and then there will be XXXXX, and then there would be last 4 digits so the person knows where they were charged. The challenge here is that the provider at the start actually wanted to send us the full IBAN. And if we did not question it, we would have stored the full IBAN, and there would be 2 sources in the company, 2 teams that would be prone to risk of data breach attacks, right? So if someone stole our data, they would get all the IBANs, which is private information. So what we did, instead of just storing it and then thinking, okay, how do we secure it? We actually asked the provider team, hey, we don't really need a full IBAN. Could we just get the last 4 digits? They were like, fine, sure, no problem. And in this way, we avoided storing what we don't need. So we store only what we need. And then it was easier for us when it comes to privacy and security, as well as, not causing any problems there. So don't get overwhelmed with data because that can be really noisy for you. So don't store what you don't need. I have to talk about safety nets because when we discuss about, shipping the MVP, shipping fast, you may think, okay, what about quality? And yeah, I love quality products, right? And high quality products. And you may think, come on, will it be high quality product? Well, there is this quote also that says, it's better to build the right thing wrong than to build the wrong thing right. So we did tackle this part, right? So evolutionary design, evolutionary architecture, great. So we can work on it. But it doesn't mean that we're working without any safety net. So we want to make sure that we fail fast wisely. And how can we do it? Well, one literal example is from real life, right? So when the Golden Gate Bridge, the iconic red bridge that you see in San Francisco pictures, was being built, it was an enormous structure. The years were Great Depression years in the US, so people wanted to get work, but it also was a really scary project because if you fell from that bridge, you would die. And in order for this project to successfully continue and provide safety to the workers, the project's lead did invest a lot of money to create the safety net. So if someone slipped and fell, they would be caught. And I love this idea. Sure, it was extra investment, but it wasn't as huge of investment, and it provided security for the people working there. And I feel like there are investments that we can do as well, building high quality products and building right products, even though it's not perfect implementation, we do need safety measures. And that is automation tests. We have to have automation tests. If we don't have it, how will we know if we fail? We need to have a proper feedback loop there. And some tips here that I have that for you to try, and maybe it doesn't make sense, so take it with a pinch of salt. Test-driven development, big fan. Why? Because you're developing and you're writing tests. You write the test first, you see it fail, right? Because you haven't implemented yet the functionality. And then when you do implement, you see, okay, the test is passing. So you have both things. You have the functionality, plus you have the test. You already have feedback for you. So when you work on something else, if something breaks, you will get feedback. Another thing is balancing your tests based on your context. And also we say 80-20 rule that I hate these test coverage metrics that is 100% because you can really rig it. You can test functionality instead of testing your, you can test, your function, right? You could test the implementation detail, but that's not the good test. What you should be testing is actually the behavior, right? What you expect it to do. So it shouldn't be tightly coupled with your implementation detail. It should be a little bit detached. So even if you change the code, the test is still okay. And balancing your tests means that you shouldn't have just one type of test. So it shouldn't be just end-to-end tests or unit tests. It should be a balanced level. So if it makes more sense for you to have more integration tests, great, have some integration tests. But unit tests are the cheapest. So always have it in mind, what's the cheapest, fastest, most effective feedback that you can have, and balance it out, because end-to-end journeys are great, but they are very expensive. And maybe you could even have no end-to-end tests. I've seen teams like this because they could cover all their testing in lower levels, like contract tests, integration tests, or unit tests. And if these two sound like too much of a fantasy level, and you may say, oh, we don't really do it in our company, we haven't started from scratch. I get you. It's hard to start there. But there's one simple rule that you could start enforcing. Fix a bug, write a test. Bugs are symptoms of a failed system. You don't want it to happen again. So create a test. And then you will have feedback. If it happens again, you will have the test. And this is you building your safety net. Now, understanding the problem. This is the essential part of whatever work we do in the software engineering field. Before we search for the solutions or say, oh, this tool will solve everything, let's understand what we're trying to solve, right? What is the actual problem? I really liked how in one Quality Bits episode, Nadine Aldorf has said, get the problem to the bare bones. We were talking about user stories. We were talking about how to actually make a very nice, crisp user story. And she said, yeah, get it to the bare bones, to the basics, the simplest thing you can get. And then you can work from there, right? So once you have the little pieces, step by step, you will manage. And this comic I just had to include because I find it very funny. It all makes sense, especially when I was recently at the talk where an Agile coach was telling the story how in many companies, people don't really know why they're going Agile. And they asked the people there, and they were like, hey, why are you trying to go Agile? And the people said, oh, I don't know, my manager told me to go Agile. I go to the manager, they're like, okay, why do you want to turn Agile? Well, apart from giving those, actual school book reasons, oh, we want to be Agile, we want to be effective, like when you dig deeper and you're like, okay, but why exactly you want to be Agile? They're like, yeah, our CEO told us to become Agile. And then they asked that CEO, right, why do you want to be Agile? And it turns out the real story was that they went some golf course, they met another CEO, they spoke together, and they said, oh, the great thing happened. We went Agile. Oh, Agile. I should try as well. That's how a lot of companies go Agile. That's why it is such a curse word everywhere, because we are abusing it. We don't understand what it is, right? And yeah, because competitors do so. So often when we are trying to solve something, let's ask what's the actual problem reason, right? Maybe we're solving the wrong thing. And use tools only when you properly understand the problem. And then you will be speeding up, right? So don't just add many tools and hope that you will be faster. No, they actually can make you slower because you may not know what you're exactly tackling. So understanding the problem and your use case, you will be able to understand what do you need for that as well. I'd like to suggest you one technique. It's called 5 whys, and give you an example of how you could use it. So always question the status quo, question whatever situation you have. And I feel like as a QA, I often say I'm a question asker as well, because I ask many questions to understand this root cause of things. So imagine CEO wrote to you and they're saying, oh, let's get the shiny new end-to-end automation tool. It could help. No. You ask, why did this come up? Well, we have had many issues in production due to bugs. Okay, makes sense. But why did we have issues? Well, we had no tests to provide safety feedback, so everything kept on breaking and we kept on rushing. So makes sense, right? If we have end-to-end automation tool, we would get feedback. But here I would not stop, because I'd say, okay, no test to provide safety. Everything kept on breaking. We kept on rushing. That's a lot to unload here. So I would dig in deeper. Why? We wanted to deliver features, but also had many reappearing bugs to fix. Interesting, reappearing bugs. Why did you have reappearing bugs? I said, well, we had no test to tell about bugs. We don't have test automation, even unit tests. We felt like there's no time for that. It's really interesting. So we're talking here about end-to-end automation tool, but we are learning that the team doesn't even have unit tests properly set up. We also see that they didn't have time for that. So how are they going to get time to look at whatever end-to-end automation tool generates as well? And then we can also dig deeper, okay, like why was that? And then we felt pressure from management. Oof. So here we're actually uncovering lots of systematic problems, the pressure, the psychological safety, the feeling that there's no room for failure, or there's no room as well for tests because we're so hurrying. And then when it comes to tests, we don't even have unit tests. So looking at this situation, what I would advise is absolutely not getting this tool, because we don't have time to take a look at this tool, right? And we have bigger problems. We should actually collect all those items and work on it, right? So if you don't have unit tests, those are much cheaper and more effective and faster tests. So let's have those instead of this end-to-end automation tool. If you don't know how to write them, let's get a workshop. Let's work on the problems that we have. And don't get me wrong, tools are not bad. I love tools. They help us. Just use them wisely to solve your problems. Don't overdo the tools, because then you will end up in a huge chaos. There's this beautiful little story that I've heard somewhere, that Buddha arrived at a river and the people waiting there asked him to cross it by walking over the water. Buddha pointed to a boat and said, there's a simpler way. So even if Buddha had an ability to walk over the water, why would he walk over the water when there's a boat? So tools are exactly that, right? So they help us improve and do things faster and in a simpler way, but we have to be wise about it and not just, expose all of our powers and just be like, oh, this tool can do everything. If you don't need to use it, don't use it, right? If you can have something simpler, just choose what's simpler, choose the simpler ways. And this is a lot about minimalism and what's essential, right? So just choosing what we actually need. Here, I would like to remind you of this XKCD comic, which says, is it worth the time, right? So should you actually invest in getting the tool if it's not saving you that much of time? So if we look at this, so how much time you shave off and how often you do the task. So this way you can actually evaluate how much you should invest in order to automate it, right? So you could say, okay, if I write a script to do something instead of me, then you know how much time I'm willing to invest so that it would pay off. So if I do the task, let's say monthly, and I shave off 30 seconds, then if, you know, I invest 30 minutes right now, I think it will pay off pretty well. But then if, you know, it's not really paying off and I need to invest more time to automate something, it's not worth it. The same happens with tools, right? So sometimes it's just not worth it to get some extra tool, which will cause more problems for you. So always ask yourself what is needed, what simplifies your work, what makes you more efficient, and work with intentionality and clarity and purpose. So if there's one lesson I want you to remember from this talk, it's that to build high quality products, I believe that we have to make essential decisions, to have this word essential in our heads from minimalism, right? What is essential for us? With clarity, purpose, and intentionality. And there's the saying, less is more, and less is so much more. So let's remember it when we are working on building products, because sometimes having more, we generate cognitive load, and that is not helping us at all. So less is more, and that can help us so much in build more quality products. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. If you would like to reach out, go ahead. I'd love to hear from you. And I did add some resources as well that you could check out. And I hope you enjoyed this talk and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. And